Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd. In this one, I am going to do another series of about discographies. This one's going to be basically artists that I have almost all of their work, and at some point I would like to complete the collection. But I haven't been able to because maybe the stuff's out of print, haven't been able to afford it for a reasonable price, blah blah blah. But I certainly wouldn't mind having their entire discography. So. We're going to start off with, we're going to try to kind of go in order of, artists where they have the fewest amount of releases, and we're going to just basically go up each time. So, yeah. Anyway, this first band was a bright, the 90s were very dark time for metal, and this was one of the few American bands that had any sort of much awareness beyond just a very niche audience, and they were definitely a bright spot. Their first album didn't exactly break out of the gates, but their second one certainly did. And the album I'm talking about is Fear Factory, their debut album here, Soul of a New Machine. It's really, in my opinion, only a must-have album if you are an absolute diehard Fear Factory fan. It's honestly my least favorite album of theirs. It's very death metal-y, for lack of a better term. And death metal's fine, but it's certainly not this band's finest hour, or even really what they should have been doing. I mean, it's good, but it's not. It's definitely their weakest album. And then they followed that up. They changed directions a little bit on album number 2, and they absolutely broke fairly big with this album. Demanufacture. This is the first album of theirs I heard. Of course, I saw the music video for Replica on Headbangers Ball, and absolutely blew my mind. They got a lot more melodic singing-wise on this. Much better production. They changed their sound. They added a lot more industrial elements. This is an awesomely great industrial metal album, and so many bands followed in the footsteps of Fear Factory after they released this one. After that, they followed that up with Obsolete, which is good. It's not quite the masterpiece of their previous album, but it's still a very good album in my opinion. And then they followed that up with Digimortal, and it's a pretty solid album. It's not my favorite album by them, but I'd still say it's, like maybe, I don't know, a solid 7. Pretty good. And after that, they released Archetype, which I don't have, unfortunately. And after that, they released Transgression. Again, I don't have that album either. Then they followed that up with Mechanize. And I really, it's a good album. Then they followed that up with The Industrialist. And this is probably my favorite recent album of theirs, except for the ending has like a 9-minute, just random noise or whatever is the last track, kind of lame. But other than that, this is an incredibly great album in my opinion. And then lastly, we got Genexus, I guess, which is their most recent album, and again, really good, excellent album. And that's it for Fear Factory. I definitely wouldn't mind picking up the 2 albums from them that I don't have to complete the collection. They're absolutely one of my favorite bands, and that would be great. So, moving on. The next band that we're going to talk about is one of the big 4 of thrash. They were definitely the most fun band of the 4, at least seemingly outwardly in their music and all that. And I'll give you another clue. Band letter starts with the letter A. Gee, I wonder who it could be. Of course, I'm talking about Anthrax. I don't have their debut Fistful of Metal, which is the one album they produced prior to Joey Belladonna joining the band. It's a good album, and I certainly wouldn't mind having it. But the follow-up album, Spreading the Disease, this is an absolute classic. It has so many great songs on it. I absolutely love this album. They followed that up with what many consider to be their finest hour, Among the Living. I personally really enjoy it. It's hard to pick a favorite between that and Spreading the Disease, honestly. I think they're both really great albums. After that, they followed it up with State of Euphoria, which was a step down, definitely, from their previous two albums, but still fairly solid. It's maybe like, 7 out of 10, 6.5, 7 out of 10. Solid album, but not earth-shatteringly great. Then I got this, but this is not a must-own. This is just an EP, just some B-sides. I enjoy the tracks on here, but this is not a must-have by any means. It's not a proper studio album anyway, it's just a compilation of some B-sides. And then their final album with Joey Belladonna, at least the first time around, Persistence of Time. This is an absolute, in my opinion, masterpiece as well. I absolutely love the hell out of this album. It's great, just crushing thrash. I love this. It's killer. Then after that, Joey was out of the band, and they brought in John Bush of Armored Saint to sing for them. And so I dropped the thing. The first album they produced was Sound of White Noise, and killer, absolutely wonderful album. This thing crushes. After that, they came out with Stomp 442. And a lot of people malign this album and don't like it. Personally, it's one of my favorite Anthrax albums. I know, silly, right? But really enjoyable. After that, they came out with Volume 8, The Threat is Real. It's decent. It's certainly not their best album. It's alright. It's definitely worth having if you're a big Anthrax fan. They do have better albums, but I still think it's fairly good. After that, We've Come For You All. Again, fairly good. Not absolutely essential listening if you're an Anthrax, unless you're an Anthrax super fan. So there you go. We've Come For You All. And then their final studio recording with John Bush was a compilation, The Greater of Two Evils. And basically, on this one, they re-recorded a bunch of their Belladonna-era songs with John Bush on vocals. And John Bush puts in a great performance, and the band actually puts in a great performance. The problem with this album is the production on it absolutely sucks. The loudness wars really just crushes this recording. It's super loud, no dynamic range. It's almost as bad as Death Magnetic in that department. Not quite as bad, but it's pretty bad. And this was their final studio release with John Bush, because honestly, the last couple albums, they were kind of stagnating creatively with John Bush in the band. When he first joined the band, they put out some really killer material, and they were one of the few bands, I think, that kind of did a transition fairly well with another vocalist. But granted, their last couple with him were just kind of meh. So anyway, there's that. And then finally, they did reunite with Joey Belladonna, and we got, Worship Music, which is honestly an awesome return to form for Anthrax. It's absolutely great. Can't recommend this album enough. And then their newest album, For All Kings, I don't have, but I'm sure I'll buy it soon. I don't know why I haven't picked it up. I have seen it out and about. Maybe I was broke when I saw it or whatever. Who knows why I haven't bought it. But that's neither here nor there. So those are those bands. Now, the next band that I'm going to, more of an artist than a band. The next artist I'm going to talk about is not metal at all, not even really remotely. But I really enjoy his music for what it is. It's a good diversion. It's not remotely serious at all. The artist I'm talking about, of course, is Weird Al. There's his debut album, self-titled. Followed that up with In 3D. Following that up with Dare to Be Stupid. And then followed that up with Polka Party. Right? And then we got Even Worse. And he followed that up with, now this isn't just a soundtrack to his movie UHF. It's got some other stuff on it. It has some pretty good parodies on it. As well, of course, there's a lot of original stuff. And his original stuff is actually usually really well composed and funny. I mean, he's a, comedy act. And his original songs are quite funny as well as his parodies. And if you have not seen UHF and you like goofy, zany comedy, I would definitely recommend checking out that movie at some point. Moving on. Off the Deep End. After that, Alapalooza. After that, we got Bad Hair Day. After that, Running with Scissors. After that, we got me slinging this thing around. We got Poodle Hat. Is the album that released after that, Straight Outta Linwood. I unfortunately was never able to pick that up. I'm gonna try to pick it up used if I can, because there's a lot of songs on that I really like as well. Following that, we got Alpocalypse. And lastly, we got Mandatory Fun. Really good stuff. He makes most of the stuff he parodies. The original stuff I absolutely hate. But, I mean, there are exceptions to that. Obviously I like Michael Jackson. He parodied Michael Jackson a fairly large number of times. And some of the rock stuff he parodied, like Nirvana and stuff. I do enjoy some of the originals he parodied, but most of it I find kind of atrocious, and he makes pop music listenable for me, because usually he obviously makes the lyrics much more amusing than what they were before, because most of the lyrics that he parodies are utter rubbish, and he makes them something funny, and that's greatly appreciated, and his musicianship is quite good, and usually his singing voice is less annoying than whoever he's parodying. So anyway, that's enough about him. Moving on. This final band has gotten, a fair amount of love. For a long time, they were really underrated. I have more releases by this artist than I do any other artist, even though I'm missing a few of their releases, because they've put out a shitload of albums. I have 15 of their albums. And in my opinion, they are one of the most important thrash acts of all time. And let me grab this giant stack of CDs here. The band in question is, of course, Overkill. This is their debut here, Feel the Fire. Absolutely great. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to put this white screen in my face here so I can tell you the albums I don't have by them, so I don't have them all memorized in order. After that, they have Taking Over. And when I bought this is actually a CDR, not a pressed CD. I bought this on Amazon and did not realize it was a CDR. Because you look at the packaging, it looks pretty legit. Nowhere in the listing did it mention it was a CDR until I got the damn thing. I made a video on it a while back. I can't actually show you the disc because it's in my CD player right now. But a bit of an irritation. But at least I got like packaging and it looks real and all that. I mean, and honestly, looking at, I don't know how well you can tell this on camera, but it looks like this was actually produced professionally. So, whatever. Anyway, their third album, Under the Influence. I think I actually got this, and this is an absolutely awesome album too, by the way. I think I got it from that album and a couple others I think I originally got from the Columbia Record Club back in the day, of all things. After Under the Influence, we got The Years of Decay. Following that up, we got Horoscope. Killer album. All these albums are great, actually. I mean, it's just... I love them all. After that, they released I Hear Black. And on this one, it's the most different album Overkill ever did. They definitely slowed it down for this one. It was just an all-out thrash assault. But I really like it. It's got great style to it, really good production, excellent album, even though it was a little different for them. After that, they returned, more to form. And I think this is the first album by them I ever actually heard, by the way. And that's WFO, or Wide Fucking Open. Absolutely great album. And then they released The Killing Kind. I don't have that one. Then they came out with From the Underground and Below. And this is an absolutely awesome slab of incredibly awesome, mixture of classic and modern metal. This thing's the production on this is crystal clean. I love the hell out of this album. Then after that, Necroshine. Not quite as solid as their previous album, but this is still, I would still rate it as pretty good. Excuse me. After that, we got Bloodletting. Again, pretty good album. The first song on this, Thunderhead, absolute fucking classic. After that, we got Killbox 13, an album I don't have. After that, we got basically like it's RELI and then the Roman numeral for 14, so it's RELIXIV. I don't have that one. After that, they released Immortalis. Then after that, Ironbound, and many people consider this to be one of their an absolute modern-day masterpiece. I would tend to agree with that. This is an incredibly great album. After that, they released The Electric Age, and again, it's another great album. After that, White Devil Armory, another great album of theirs. And then, lastly, their most recent one, released early this year, The Grinding Wheel. Again, another good album. So, anyway, that's pretty much it. I would definitely not mind having the entire discography of these bands. I've added all of these, basically the gaps in these discographies I've thrown onto my Amazon wishlist. That way I can reference it later. I can check prices, not just on Amazon, but across the internet. And see what I can find. So that's pretty much going to wrap this up. My next discography video, which will probably be the last video I do before Christmas, will basically be videos that artists that I have a lot of their releases, but I don't want to own their entire discographies because, well, they have a lot of shit albums that aren't worth owning. So we'll be talking about that next. But these four artists here, I definitely wouldn't mind completing them because, honestly, I think all their albums are either really good or at the very least, they're solid and worth owning. So that pretty much wraps this up. As always, if you enjoyed this, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.